What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's Spectre here, and welcome back to another Pokemon Sword and Shield discussion and speculation video. Now, you might have seen that there are a lot of people speculating about a new EEVEELUTION coming in this generation, in Gen 8. There is a ton of hype, but there are also a lot of questions that come with this hype. For instance, why exactly do so many people feel that there is a new EEVEELUTION coming? Is there actually going to be a new EEVEELUTION? And if so, what type is it going to be, and what is it going to look like? Well, I've done a lot of research, and I think I have a very solid case to make for answering all of these questions for you guys. So sit back, relax, and let's talk EEVEELUTIONs in Pokemon Sword and Shield. So why exactly do so many people feel that there is going to be a new EEVEELUTION? Well, in order to answer this question, we actually have to look back at past generations and what EEVEELUTIONs have come out and when exactly they were released. So of course, in Generation 1 we had the release of the original 3 EEVEELUTIONs, Flareon, Vaporeon, and then Jolteon. In the next generation, Gen 2, we had Umbreon and Espeon, then Gen 4 we had Leafeon and Glaceon, and then finally Gen 6 we got Sylveon. So looking at this pattern right here, this is the main reason why people think there's going to be a new EEVEELUTION. After the Generation 1 original EEVEELUTIONs, it began to skip every 2 generations. You see, Generation 2 we got new EEVEELUTIONs, Generation 4, then 6, 2, 4, 6. So, if you follow this trend, logically you'd think that the next time we're going to get an EEVEELUTION is this generation, Gen 8. Then there's also the fact that there has been a very heavy emphasis on Eevee lately in all of the Pokemon merchandise, in the video games, with Eevee being one of the 2 mascots of the Let's Go games, of course, and Eevee being heavily featured as one of the protagonist's main Pokemon in one of the new Pokemon movies. Overall, it would be really weird if they had Eevee as the mascot of a Pokemon game, and then in the next games, the subsequent games that come after it, not having an EEVEELUTION to kind of capitalize on its new popularity. I mean, Eevee has always been popular, but then to make it an actual mascot of a game and not capitalize on that in the next generation, that would be a little weird. Then, of course, there's the fact that this is a huge game for Game Freak. It's the first time that the main series has actually moved to a home console, which has been wanted by fans basically since the beginning of time. So to have a game this significant and this big and not give what they know the fans have wanted forever, since Eevee is such a fan favorite, it would definitely be a really weird scenario if that didn't happen. Then of course there's the generational pattern that would be broken. All the build-up across various mediums in the franchise surrounding Eevee would have all been for nothing. So yeah, I think it's a very high chance that we're going to get a new EEVEELUTION, but the main question is, what type will it be and what will it look like? So I personally am pretty thoroughly convinced that there will actually be 2 new EEVEELUTIONs in this generation, and their typings will be Dragon and Steel. Now there's a lot of evidence towards this claim. The first thing is looking at all the types of the previous EEVEELUTIONs and seeing any patterns that we can spot. Notice how in every generation the types actually interact with each other in some way. For instance, in Generation 1 we had Vaporeon being the water type, who was super effective against the fire type Flareon, and then of course Jolteon was super effective against Vaporeon's water typing. Then in Gen 2 we had Dark being super effective against the other evolution that was introduced, Espeon, the Psychic, and then finally in Gen 4 we had Glaceon being super effective against Leafeon, Ice against Grass. Now the only instance in which this didn't happen was Gen 6 with Sylveon, which coincidentally is the only generation in which we've only had 1 new EEVEELUTION. So you might be asking yourself, why would they only introduce 1 EEVEELUTION, and what's to say that they won't do this again? Well, I think that Sylveon was merely a way to balance out the EEVEELUTIONs. Hear me out. If they continued to introduce pairs of new EEVEELUTIONs like they have for the past couple generations, they'd have 1 remaining at the end anyways. But now that Sylveon was introduced, there are 10 remaining types that have not been used for evolutions, so they can just continue the pairs for the rest of the series. Keep in mind that Fairy was also a brand new type in Generation 6, so it was a great way to promote the new type as well by just having 1 brand new evolution of that type, and not adding in a second one to kind of detract from the attention of the new typing. So that's why I think there will be an actual another pair of evolutions in this generation. But why Dragon and Steel? Well, think back to Gen 6 when we only got 1 EEVEELUTION that was the Fairy type. We never got any EEVEELUTIONs that interacted with it in terms of their typing. Of the types that haven't been used yet, Poison is super effective against it, Steel is super effective against it, Dragon is weak to it, and Fighting is weak to it. So I think it would be reasonable to expect that these are the most likely of types, at least in terms of the type interactions. However, there is huge evidence for Dragon and Steel specifically, and it comes in the form of the games themselves and their themes. So the two main themes of the Sword and Shield games seem to be kind of this medieval theme and an industry theme. Remember in the trailer how they were talking about, all the Pokemon and the humans in this region work together to forge the industries? They said something like that in the trailer. And then of course, you know, Sword and Shield, there's castles, there's knights, there's dragons, all this sort of stuff. And of course, what do knights wear? They wear steel, and they have steel weapons, such as, you know, you guessed it, swords and shields. And dragons are, well, you know, dragons, and are heavily featured in the region itself, such as this massive dragon-themed castle that's kind of in the middle of the region. So when it comes to the themes of these games, Dragon and Steel are definitely the most fitting types. Looking at the Sword and Shield icons themselves, we can say that they definitely represent some sort of attack and defense theme. Of course, with the sword being for attacking and the shield being for defending. If you look at the overall stats of types by averaging all the stats of the Pokemon that have that type, Dragon has the highest combined attack and special attack, with the average fully evolved Dragon type having a base attack and special attack of 114. And Steel has the highest defense, with a fully evolved defense average of 120. These types represent Sword and Shield perfectly and also go in with the whole medieval kind of theme that the region has. From the evidence for a new evolution pair, to the Dragon and Steel type's interaction with the Fairy type, to the Sword and Shield theme, it's looking like these are the two most likely types for new evolutions. But what will they look like? Looking into the fan art for new evolutions, I have to give credit to CD Hernley on DeviantArt, who came up with some beautiful, beautiful designs. First off, here we have the Steel type evolution. And man, oh man, I really, really like this thing. You have to think back to all the past evolutions. They've all been relatively simple designs. I think the most complex maybe might be something like Vaporeon, who actually becomes, you know, a different type of species. They're all supposed to be kind of dogs, but it almost becomes like mermaid-like, and that's the most complex that I can think that the evolutions actually become. So this Steel type one, it's not overly designed, it's not overly complicated. It looks pretty simple, just like the rest of the evolutions. I love the contrast between kind of the silver and gray and the blue eyes. It just really stands out. If you think back to all the past evolutions, their eyes really kind of have that glossed over look that really contrasts with the rest of her body. So I think that this actually fits in really, really well, and it almost looks like it has a little bit of a plate of armor, but again, it's not overly detailed. It's just very, very simple, and it's got those little ankle rings. I love this thing. I would be so happy if this became the new Steel type evolution. Oh man, I love it. But let's move on to the Dragon type evolution, which looks like this. Now this, I feel, is a little tiny bit over-designed, but you know what? It's the Dragon type. The Dragon type tends to, you know, go big or go home when it comes to designs, and I'm liking this one. The color theme is really good. It's got kind of that mystical kind of element to it, which is definitely, you know, you think back to folk tales and fairy tales and all that, they all have that kind of medieval theme. And this looks like a mystical dragon, to be honest. It really, really does. Loving the design. I think its color scheme is not my absolute favorite, but I do like the design elements, from the ears to the horns to the long kind of, you know, mystical dragon whiskers, if you want to call them that, the little orb on his chest. I'm loving this thing. I'd be happy with this. I mean, I'd be happy with evolutions, new evolutions in general, but these two, the Steel and the Dragon types, oh man, this is what I think is going to happen in Gen 8. We just don't know what they look like yet, but these are very, very good designs, so huge credit to CD Hernley on making these. Maybe you should look for a job at Game Freak. I mean, I'd be down for some more designs like this. This is great. I'm loving these guys, but what do you think is going to happen in Gen 8? Are we going to get new evolutions? If so, how many? And what types are they going to be? Personally, looking at all the evidence, I think this Dragon and Steel theme, I mean, what else could it be? It's Sword and Shield, it's medieval themed, they interact with Fairy, there's just so much evidence piling up towards this, but you let me know in the comments down below what you think is going to happen, what your hopes and wishes are. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time for another Pokemon Sword and Shield discussion video.